Bandwidth for this podcast is brought to you by Ideate Software. Be sure to check out all of their great Revit applications designed to increase your productivity.
World record sharks is not what we're talking about today on BIM Thoughts. We're going to be talking about, we'll probably be chatting about stuff with Scott Chatterton, Carl Storms, and Dana DeFilippi. So Scott, you've been on before. Define yourself.
Sure. Well, right now I'm the BIM Solutions Director for a company called BIM One,
Okay.
which Carl will be familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm situated out here in Western Canada, so kind of expanding the company beyond the borders of Eastern Canada.
Oh.
And just something that I've been involved with. As you mentioned, I've been involved with the BIM conference circuit for a number of years. Many years ago, worked for a reseller, a company called Autodraft, based out of Calgary.
Wow.
And became a BIM specialist, BIM implementation specialist, and then got back into the industry, but always had a passion, I think, for sharing knowledge and educating people around BIM. And then last year, or the year before, got back into consulting. And I really enjoy it. I really enjoy helping companies just do things better, right? Using the experience that I have, using the experience that I learned from these companies that are struggling with BIM, and then just sharing that information and passing it along.
Are people still struggling with BIM, like trying to implement it, like the old days?
And that's a really good question, because I think all of us here, we've all gone through that cycle of several years ago when BIM first started out, and we all were involved with doing basic Revit training and getting people into the platform. And at that point I thought, great, 3 years everybody will be doing this, and it'll be this will be the default program to go to. But no, we're still working with companies that are doing the transition from 2D to 3D. Majority of the people that I work with have done that transition, but are struggling to make it efficient and in their eyes profitable. And then finally, the last group is companies that just want to check up and just want to make sure that they're doing things the right way and that they're not missing out on anything. But yeah, I've been really surprised at the number of companies that are still asking, what is BIM? How can I use BIM?
That's interesting. I guess in the back of my mind, I knew there were still, companies out there that weren't BIMing yet. But I didn't think it would be a large percentage. I thought we'd be down in the tens of percentage.
Yeah, it's more than what you think, and I think the reason for that is, we're all involved deeply into the BIM world in the AEC industry, and we circle around that same community, but we forget that there's a broader circle that's outside of that community that we never really engage with or never contact with. So recently, there's been these companies that have been popping up that I should have heard about in the past, but have never had in the previously, and that's because they've been, head down, doing the work, not engaging with the BIM community until recently, and I think, frankly, I think the pandemic's had a huge impact on pushing that forward in the industry. I think companies have realized that they've either been pushed into collaborating digitally, or their staff has worked remotely, and they're looking at ways to utilize BIM from that perspective. Or, and I hope this is the driving factor, but I'm not sure. I hope the clients and the people that are commissioning these projects are starting to ask more of the design team around BIM. And I think what we're seeing is now now we're really starting to see that cohesion between disciplines, so the design community, the clients, uh, the contractors, the trades, and then finally the building owners and operators. Really is starting to come together, which to me is certainly past due,
Right.
but it's exciting to see. We're seeing more RFPs come out around BIM. We're seeing more companies say, yeah, we need to adopt BIM because the owner and the client's asking for an FM model,
Uh-huh.
right? For example, and they don't really know what that deliverable looks like.
Interesting. It seems like we've gone through cycles in adoption, where at first it was the competitive advantage cycle, where people wanted to be on the forefront of technology. And then it became the I'm a little guy and I need to be a subcontractor to a big guy that's using Revit or what have you, and I need to learn this right away so I can get this job or help this other place out. So the subs started to come up to it, meaning like the engineers and then the design architects and the other architects that would come in to help in a large building. But now it looks like we've turned that corner and we're now approaching the spot where the owners want it, which is good to hear.
Yeah, yeah, and for me, personally, being a BIM evangelist in the industry,
Uh-huh.
getting in front of that owner group has been very difficult,
Yeah.
and I don't know why, but they have been probably the most challenging um, audience, getting in front of that audience that I've ever had.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, now we're starting to see that turnaround, and it's interesting. You talk about the smaller organizations, the smaller firms picking it up.
Uh-huh.
I think the majority of my clientele right now are probably two size firms. They're either around 15 people where
Uh-huh.
they can't dedicate anybody full time to this type of role, and they're really looking at investing a little bit of money to make improvements. Or it's a firm of around 40 or 50 or
Mm.
60 that are on that cusp of hiring a full-time BIM manager, but not really sure what they want. And right now, what I'm finding is just talking to a number of companies and even a number of recruiters, because I get approached a lot by recruiters just asking who's out there in the industry for positions, that finding a really good quality BIM manager is very challenging right now.
Well, finding anybody is challenging right now.
Yeah,
And
yeah, that's
keeping
right.
people is challenging right now too.
Keeping people's challenging, and I think that's a shift in the work culture that we're seeing as well, right? People
Uh-huh.
are, the opportunity to work from home, to have flexible hours. I think owners of businesses are realizing before they had a lot of hesitancy
Uh-huh.
in people working from home, and now I think they're realizing that the hesitancy really isn't valid. People still do their work, and quite often they actually become more productive.
Yeah. The hybrid workforce is a reality now.
Exactly, and I've been fortunate. I've been in that hybrid position for several years now. Right, I
Uh-huh.
live in a small town in the middle of British Columbia for most of my married life since I immigrated to Canada, and been lucky. I haven't really had to move for work, so I've commuted to Vancouver and traveled
Mm-hmm.
around the world and across Canada and the US and done everything digitally, right, online.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing now is that companies are not afraid to hire a consultant, irregardless of where they are. So before,
Oh,
consulting
okay.
when I worked for AutoDraft,
Isn't that interesting?
we needed that office in Calgary or we needed that office in Vancouver. Now you can do consulting anywhere
Yeah.
because
And that I didn't really think about that aspect of it.
Yeah, because we're all become very comfortable now with the digital communication platforms and
Yeah,
being able to communicate and teach online as well.
it's all becoming expected now. Or not, it's, well, I'm sorry, maybe not expected is the wrong word. It's all becoming, it's not a surprise anymore when you find out that the person on the other end is in Washington, D.C., for example.
Yeah, yeah, exactly right. Dana's in Washington D.C. I'm
Right.
3 or 4 time zones west of her,
Uh-huh.
so it's yeah, it's amazing.
It is amazing.
I'd actually say that it's kind of surprising when somebody's close.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, that it is.
Even if we were in the office. I mean, given the roles that many of us do, right? Somebody, let's just say, can't find an element in Revit. I know I place it, I can't see it. I can see it over here, but I can't see it over there. I mean, I don't want to get within their 6 foot bubble. So sharing screens is really the only option, even if we were in the office. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. It surprised me when I started working at LPA how people would share the screen even if they're in the same office. And even if they were within distance of each other where they didn't really need to use the headsets, they would still share screens instead of getting up and
It's also much easier from a teaching standpoint in the terms of I don't need to displace someone from their seat. They can
yeah.
sit there and watch, the clicks and the movements.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm much we're both able to see the screen, and visualize and uh, converse, speak to the information
Yeah.
much better than standing over somebody's shoulder, right?
I think that's a really good point for um, that on-demand, short 5 minute training tips. I still, I'm a great supporter of online learning and online learning platforms, but I still think there's really a position for in-person classroom training where we can capture their attention. They're not distracted by email or, you know, being drawn away in the office, to capture their attention for a half day or a full day within a group setting, because you create that community, short-term community where you're all learning at the same pace, with a really engaging instructor.
Yes, I miss that. I miss that type of training. I miss the sitting down and BSing with somebody because you don't do that as much anymore. I mean,
Yeah,
you
and,
have to,
talking about their issues, right? The issues that,
right.
or the struggles that they're having on projects, and that's
Mm-hmm.
it's one of the key things that I've learned throughout my career is understanding what people's learning preferences are. Not everybody wants to do in class. Not everybody wants to do the once a month hour training session. Not everybody wants to do it through receiving emails. So you've got to mix it up constantly, and make it engaging and interesting. So and that also means changing up the instructors too, right? Utilizing the people within your firm as a knowledge base. Now we're getting into training.
Well, and that was I was just going to ask that as we sort of meandered into training it. And it's funny, everyone here has either done consulting, done training, worked for reseller, or at various times a combination of all the above. So
Hmm.
we're definitely all preaching to the choir. But I'm wondering, for now that we're coming into the golden age of BIM consulting, if I can say that.
Hmm.
Uh, do you find that there's more true consulting work? And what I mean by that, as you mentioned, you have that firm that's right around that 35, 40 person mark. They could do with a BIM manager, but there's no budget, or they couldn't keep them busy, or whatever the case may be. So that's a perfect role for somebody to come in and spend a day a week, 2 days a week doing true on consulting work. do you find there's more of that and less of the training, or is it again just a different type of training?
No, I agree. I think there's more of that. I think, and that's really the perfect scenario, and that's what I've been finding more of. It's just that touch base, right? They're looking for somebody who's got the industry experience and knowledge to validate the direction that they're going in, to review or QC their template, their content, their processes, and their workflows, and just to get feedback on making sure that it's the direction that it's the right direction for that firm at that time. And for me, training's always an integral part of everything that we do. So whether I'm doing just even a review or doing a full strategic plan, knowledge sharing is always a part of that. So I'm always prompting them and asking them, what are you doing? How are you sharing knowledge? It's it's a constant aspect of what we do. But you're absolutely right, Carl. I think what I'm finding now is those firms they may have the in-house skills. They want verification that they're utilizing BIM in the right manner, and they kind of want a little bit of sneak peek behind the curtain about what to expect coming down the pipeline for them. And quite often, our position and all of us here, we have the vision to do that because we're seeing the whole industry. We're not attached to one design firm where we're a little, I want to say, sheltered from many different inputs of the industry. We get to hear the different feedback and different challenges and see what some of the owners and the developers and the clients are going to be asking for the future. And quite often, a lot of it is, easy, low-hanging fruit stuff that they may not have even considered in the past.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things that I'll mention there is that that's one of the things that my nearly 8 years at Imagine it gave me was a wide berth of different experiences in different areas in the AEC.
Hmm.
So and that's what a consultant brings to the table, is they have those different things. The other thing that from what you're talking that sort of comes to play is, are you seeing or do you think the idea of maybe more retainer based, almost like a legal firm? I don't need you every day a week, but I want you to be available to me. So a block of hours or phone call away, or is that going to be a new reality or a new consulting method, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely right. On demand, and that certainly is a key aspect, I think, for the success of any consultant is giving the confidence, having the client's confidence that you can address the issues and resolve their issues when they need it resolved by. And quite often, it could be, pick up the phone. It's crunch time. We got to get these drawings out at the end of the week, and we're having this issue. How do we resolve that? And one other aspect that I'm sure you'll all agree upon is, the the magic source of a good consultant is industry experience, right? We've all been in the trenches. We've all had to deal with it, and we've all either had that production role or the BIM management role where people have come to us with these issues, and just understanding how the platform works, um, thinking how or having that mindset about how the platform thinks and those workarounds, or having that in-depth knowledge about what's out there that could be a potential tool to help us do that. So, yeah.
Well, and I think that could lead to the one issue that people might stumble across with the on demand version of consulting is, what if I have a problem and I call and Scott's not available, so I get someone else from the firm, from the consultant agency. How do you sell that to the client? I mean, I know from the consulting end how we handle that, but you know, some people are still going to have that issue, just like they didn't want to move from CAD to BIM. With having an in-house BIM manager, you know who that person is. Whereas I pick up the phone and I don't know who I'm going to get.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that really comes down to the consulting team. Even though I may be the point person, um, and people really expect me to know everything. Fact of the matter is, I don't. Right? I'm relying on other people within my firm who are the specialists in Dynamo or BIM 360. Even though I have that fundamental understanding of it, we've got these people that really specialize in it. Whether that's Civil 3D and those types of things, data management for FM. So having those people on hand for me to draw upon and answer questions, but also for our clients to be able to phone up and have the confidence to say, okay, you know, Scott can't help me right now. Who else is available that can do that? And then having that team of experts that can easily answer those questions.
So a few things come to mind. I feel like I should have been taking notes because I have so many things to say based off of what has been happening. But first, I'll start with training. Uh, Being at Microdesk as a consultant, I felt like training and getting to train multiple different types of people at multiple different types of firms was definitely fascinating. But my favorite part definitely was getting to see all the different templates. Just seeing how people put together their templates was fascinating to me. But at Smith Group, being uh, multidisciplinary, it's actually, I feel, I get to see a bit of a glimpse into different mindsets. It's actually opened my mind in terms of Revit and its capabilities in a very different way. Whereas consulting, I was very architectural, and that was what, this specialty that I was in. Um, so with that being said, and also being national, all of our classes, even pre-COVID, were always online. I give the Dynamo courses, and so I give it to everybody at Smith Group, whether they're in Detroit or San Francisco or whatever it might be. There might be times where maybe there was a heavy population of DC people, so I would set up a conference room. Sometimes I would actually just overcomplicate things. So I would always we as a team would give all of our classes virtually. So I think in that way, there's a lot of different ways that you can get interaction, right? Because I do think that that is one facet that you lose. The people that are not prone to be hand raisers, for example. Um, they're definitely not going to be doing that virtually. You can't even get that look or that glimpse in their eye to see that they're struggling, or the walk around to look at their monitors. But I always share my camera, right? I'm always sharing the camera, and also I always will get to points where I ask people to give me the green check or give me an emoticon or what have you to let me know that they've completed a certain step.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. And so I do a lot of assessments too, right? I come into a firm, and for us to fully understand what their needs are, we do an in-depth analysis, and that involves quite often work groups, workshops, and they can be remote, just like you're doing with the training. Um, but your question there about prompting them for feedback, otherwise you get the consistent hand raises, which are, out of a group of 15 or 20 people, it'll be maybe four. So, and you probably find this with training as well. You ask them pointed questions, and you'll specifically ask people for their feedback, and that really is to draw out the answers to them from them. Not only the questions, what their challenges are, how they feel about the transition or the training, what their engagement is, and then you can customize the training or the questions for the analysis or the workflow around what their specific needs are, because those are the people who are going to be, those are why you're there to train. or implement.
Definitely.
So we really need to engage those people and bring those people out. And what I have found in the past, when I wrote an article on this ages ago, is not everybody needs to be a rock star, right? I've had BIM rock stars as BIM managers, and they're always putting their hand up and they're answering the questions, and they're in there, knee deep into the project. And those people that are quite often quiet, but they're thinking about things and they've got an opinion of it, they just may be hesitant in sharing that. So being able to draw that out of them and get their feedback and get their engagement in that. And I think you made this point earlier. It opens your mind up, because I'm the same. Most of my career has been around architecture, and it wasn't until the last firm that I worked for where I started to get more engaged with the multidiscipline aspect, that your tunnel vision of architecture starts to broaden out, and you're going, oh yeah, I never thought of that, right? And how architecture engages with mechanical, and how the impact of what we do, how that impacts electrical. so Dan, what you said earlier about broadening your vision and your mindset to encompass the whole BIM industry. And I'm working now with a construction company, and the focus there is all around coordination and material takeoffs and collaboration. It's nothing to do with production of drawings. It's more around resolving issues before they even get on site. So it's really interesting to see that perspective and to draw that out when you work on those groups. And as you say before, it can be easily done, or it can be done in a digital format, because quite often you don't have a choice, right? You're dealing with people in Vancouver or Toronto or Phoenix or LA.
One additional thing I try to do, or I always do, is in addition to giving myself an introduction, I go in alphabetical order and have everybody give me an introduction. And it's brief, how long you've been in Revit or been using Dynamo, depending on what I'm teaching, and what discipline or where practice you may represent, where you're calling from, those types of things, very basic things.
Yeah.
But not only does that force them to actually say something, it makes me know that, one, their microphone works. They're capable of unmuting, right? It's like a little test at the beginning to make sure that everybody's audio is working. Nobody's not going to have problems when they want to unmute themselves. But also creates that dialogue, right? I mean, like you said, it's now we're all conversing. I'm able to recognize the problems in a different light, because we are, having a dialogue rather than me speaking at them.
And you're looking for things to be relatable to them as well.
And I think one of the best things that I learned being a consultant is learning how to say, I don't know, but I will find out.
Yeah. Yeah, I learned that early on in my career when I first started teaching Revit, and I realized I just needed to be a couple pages ahead of the students. Right, I just needed to know just enough to teach them what they needed to know, and I quickly
classes I've taught.
We've all been there.
Yeah, and I quickly learned that if you try and BS your way through that, they just see through you immediately, and you get far greater respect if you stand up and say, you know what, I don't know, let me find out and get back to you, and do it, because that's really when you gain their confidence, is when you come back with the right answer.
Or what I would do is try to figure it out then and there, but spend a reasonable amount of time on it, not go down a complete rabbit hole like I normally do with everything else. But
or do what I do, just phone Carl up and say, Carl, how do you do this?
Just give me a second. I'll call Dana.
Yeah, exactly. The telephone game happens. And in a way, Bill, what you're explaining, it kind of leads the horse to water, right? Let's Google it together.
let's find
figure
out.
this out together. I don't know
Yeah.
the answer, but let's, research it and come up with maybe some things that we could try at the very least.
But I think that's really the heart of a successful implementation, and not that specifically, but that in general. Because what we're doing when we're implementing BIM is we want people to be comfortable in the change. We're giving them permission to learn, and by that, what I mean is, I come from a production background, so I was very focused on being efficient, productive, creating drawings to get them out. And whatever disrupted me, whether it was a new process or whatever that disrupted me from doing that, I wasn't receptive to adopting it because it impacted my productivity. So what we need to do is give people permission to learn and say, you know what, I understand that this will take you longer. For the short term, but in the long term, we're all going to be of greater benefit. And just by simply giving them permission to learn, it's like taking the veil off or the handcuffs off of them, and they're far more receptive to learning, and they're far more receptive to change and adoption of new process, and their eyes open up, and that change or that permission to learn not only needs to come from the instructor, but it also needs to come from leadership, right? Their leadership. They need the confidence in their leadership to be able to not be as efficient in the short term.
Well, it comes from the instructor in asking leadership to give them permission to learn. Instructor can't give permission to learn. I could go up there all day and say, "Oh, I've given you permission to learn," and they're gonna giggle behind their breath and say, "Yeah, right. I still have a quota that I got to fill out on my time card to meet my utilization rate."
Or a project that needs to get done by Friday, right?
Right.
They have
Or they got a.
deadlines.
Yeah, they got pressures.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I think is there has to be a desire, right? I mean, some people, and we see it a lot, they are constantly looking for the easy button, don't want to Google, right? It seems like there's definitely people within our industry, sadly, that, are reluctant to learn.
Do you think you can create that desire to learn? Do you think you can draw that out of people?
I don't think so.
Might not be able to create the desire to learn, but if you get the right, like Dana was saying, you sort of have those loaded questions. You might be able to show them something that gets them excited about something that they used to be excited about.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
less that they don't want to learn. It's just, I've been doing it this way for so long. It's, the fun of design is gone for me. I don't want to do it anymore. And then they're like, hey, modeling's like building with Lego. Remember Lego? I love Lego. Oh, that's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Scott said, finding something relatable, right? If I know that you're, hand drafting lines that are, just arraying a whole bunch of things over and over again, right? If I understand that problem, we might be able to save you some time, or I might be able to, you know, show you a different way to do that in Revit or create a tool or what have you.
Yeah, get them excited about it again. I know that was really the reason why I moved from, I was a Power AutoCAD user, then AutoCAD architecture user, and then I was invited by a good friend of mine to join AutoDraft and become a BIM specialist and do the consulting from that perspective. But I did that because I started to get bored, right? Not only with, I'm not an architect. I've always been in a production role. I started to get burned out from doing the pressures of work, but also got bored of pushing lines around and pushing ADT walls around, and was looking for something that would, really reinvigorate me in the industry. And for me, I was lucky, right? That's when I discovered my passion for teaching and sharing of knowledge.
In all the years that I've taught small classes, you can always tell the students that are there that are eager to learn. And really the only thing that I could provide to them, other than the knowledge of how to do the things, is provide them the tools to help them learn more. And everyone that I have encountered that takes the time after work on their own time to learn the product or to investigate something or to learn a little bit more about it, those are the ones that succeed. Those are the ones that become the BIM managers. Those are the ones that become the consultants.
Yeah, because really what we're doing when we teach them, we're just showing them what the capabilities are.
Right.
And we're saying, remember this, because later you're going to look for it and you're going to want to try and do it.
Right. And I would hazard to bet a lot of money that everyone on this call today, the four of us, have all learned AutoCAD and Revit and Dynamo and all the other great tools on our own time.
Yeah.
And so if you want to be successful in this career, you have to spend the time.
Yeah. And just thinking about that too, because sometimes really the only way you're going to learn is if you have an interest in it.
Right.
And I'll use my son as an example, right? He's a BIM specialist for a structural engineering firm, and I've been, whenever something interesting has come up, I've been pushing it to him.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them recently was twin motion. And he's a gamer. He loves gaming. He's got some friends together where they're actually built and developed some games. And I said, take a look at twin motion. And then next time I went down and saw what he was doing with twin motion, it was all revolving around game development. And I started talking to him about how that can be applicable to architecture and doing the animation and the virtual reality stuff as well, right? So, and it's that spark of interest that he has in gaming and creating gaming engines, combined with the new incredible features of twin motion and I forgot the other rendering platform out there that he's using. Unity, yeah, exactly, right. Even Enscape, and using those interests to bring back to his role in the industry.
Right, because what he's doing is he's trying to play at work.
Yeah, exactly, right.
He's interested in the games, and he's working in an industry that isn't the gaming industry, but you know what? It's a visualization industry.
Yeah, more so now than ever.
He's interested in that, and that's wonderful. And whenever you're interested in something, you want to learn more about it.
Exactly, and that's one aspect. I've had the opportunity to teach university classes, and that's one aspect that I really encourage them to do is learn those features that are outside of their normal day-to-day role aspect, right? Learn the rendering aspect, or learn the dynamo, or learn about process and protocols and workflows, or whatever, because you can have passion around that and enjoyment and bring that to your day-to-day job. And that was really one of the aspects of why I myself, and I'm sure other people in this industry, get burned out, because we're doing the same thing over and over every day.
Right. Yeah, that's why I'm doing something completely different than BIM these days. I still have interest in BIM. That's why I'm still doing the podcast, but I'm now doing information so I'm doing the I in BIM now as opposed to the M.
Yeah, and that has really taken off in the industry, recently. That, I'm sure when we all started, it was that building the model aspect, and now that I is really standing out. The information and the data in projects, we've always talked about it. Now it's really becoming to the forefront and becoming more crucial, a crucial aspect of the projects. And not only, I've worked on, nuclear plants and incredibly large hospitals. Now I'm doing 4-story wood frame residential buildings where the eye is just as crucial as any hospital that I've done.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And it's not only the information for building the building, it's the information about the model performance itself that intrigues me. So as we look at the model performance, how does that equate to project performance? How does that equate to how many hours somebody spends doing this project? If the model performance is bad, they're spending more time sitting there waiting to load and save than they are actually modeling.
Yeah, good point. And the flip side to that is the BIM utilization, right? Using the model for more than just production of construction drawings.
Right.
Right? Using it for the analysis, using it for FM, using it for visualization, using it for quantities and cost estimation and clash detection, all of that now, right? That's the big I in BIM.
Yeah. Switching gears a little bit towards the future of consulting, I'm starting to think that the future of consulting becomes embedded consulting.
What do you mean by embedded consulting?
Where instead of teaching them how to do it and having a class, you actually send somebody to their office or send somebody remotely, and they work with the project team to get the project done. So they become a project team member. They become maybe the model manager for that project. And they embed themselves in the project. And during that, they're teaching the project team how to use the product, how to use the tools, how to do their day-to-day job.
Yeah.
But they're also learning on the job too. Because what happened to me, or happens to everybody, is you get in that groove of this is what I know how to do and this is what people need to know how to do in Revit.
Right.
And when you leave the consulting world and go back to industry, your eyes open up, right? And you go, oh my goodness, I didn't realize that this feature that I have been touting for 5 years doesn't work, or doesn't work the way I thought it would, or the way that people who use this, they use something completely different. Or they go, oh man, this whole part of this process isn't automated yet. We're still doing it by hand. And so hopefully by an embedded consultant, that consultant is teaching their customer, their client, how to use the tool. That consultant is learning from the client, building out how they do their work. And so they can, one, teach them how to do the work, and they're learning a new skill. They're learning a new aspect of the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? Probably, I don't want to say up until recently, but previously, my focus has always been to go in and teach them and enable that firm to have the skills and bring that up. And I've done this in previous firms when I was employed as their, the BIM manager, was work my way out of a job, right? Essentially, I want to enable everybody to have the knowledge and the skills to be able to do this. And this comes back to your point, Bill, is that finding those people, it's becoming the unicorn.
Right.
So and I'm finding now with a lot of my clients is we are becoming that embedded consultant. And for me that's a change in thinking that I'm going through, because I'm used to going, okay, let's build somebody up to that position so I don't have to do this for them anymore. Not that I don't want to, it's just that I want them to succeed. But now a lot of firms are going, yep, we're not going to find that person. And we want somebody with this high level skill set that we can rely on regularly without having to compete in a very competitive market for that type of person who may or may not work for them.
And then maybe that person comes up naturally through their firm.
Yeah, exactly. And, we've all been through that, where we look for those rising stars and we look for those people that have that aptitude.
And they have to realize that the person that wants to move up to that position in order for them to be successful, or the most successful ones that I've run into are the ones that take that interest in that and are looking to move to that field, as opposed to the ones who are told to go to that field.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. They have a natural tendency to do that because, it's quite a unique skill set. You've got to find somebody who's willing to speak in front of an audience,
Right.
somebody who's willing to teach and has the aptitude to teach, and then somebody who's also willing to learn, right? Learn these new things so they can pass on that information, and somebody who's not afraid to say, "Yep, I don't know, and I'll find out."
Absolutely. My one of my bosses that I had early in my consulting career would always say, you are the smartest person when you walk in that door. And yeah, now that I look back at that comment, yeah, I was the smartest person when I walked in that door. But I was the smartest person on that subject matter that I knew. And I was also the smartest person because I knew where to find the answers on those technical problems that I didn't know the answer to.
Yeah, yeah. And you're also the smartest person there because you're willing to listen to other people and learn from them too.
Right. Absolutely.
And speaking of the smartest person there, as we creep ever so close to the two Aubins, it's funny whenever we talk about consulting, we always get off on that tangent. But as we wrap this up, I'm going to boldly take the last question. I'm just going to reach out and grab it.
I'm proud of you. Proud of you.
And so, Scott, nay, the BIM Jedi, formerly the Revit Jedi, as it's been 10 years, believe it or not, since you started blogging,
Wow.
what has changed if you were to say in 2011, this is BIM versus today, right now, this is BIM?
So you're asking what I think the future will hold in regards to BIM?
Less what the future will hold, but what's changed in those 10 years that maybe you didn't think would have changed?
Oh, I think what we're seeing now is certainly more cohesiveness between disciplines. It's not just, we've always talked about this, the siloed um, areas of the design construction aspect, but we're seeing that more integration now more than ever. And I'm constantly surprised with that, right? Talking to fabricators, talking to people outside of the construction industry that is being impacted by BIM and being drawn into projects. And then obviously the lean towards sustainability and building performance, right? Having these buildings perform not only in a way that creates efficiency, but creates a holistic environment to live and work in. I always get excited about that too. So whether that's buildings, whether it's infrastructure, transit, bridges, whatever.
I think that's pretty cool, the way to look at it, the things that have come. And I think what I take from that answer is that, here 10 years since we've been talking about BIM, I know it's been longer than that, but we're doing the realm of 10 years, that there's these things like prefab and the integration that we weren't necessarily looking for 10 years ago. Yet
Mm-hmm.
things like still building off the PDFs and not working from the model still exist. So it's a moving target as to what we expect and what we get.
Yeah, and that's why people like me and consulting companies are going to be around for a long time, because prefab and modular, that's the next influencer in the industry that's really going to change how we do BIM, because people don't realize that to do prefab and modular, it's a different approach to BIM. Right? We're not just creating a design construction intent model. We're building something that is going to be built that way. And how those packages are put together is going to have a big impact as well. That's a whole nother topic, and an exciting topic, because that's really going to have a positive impact on the industry.
That becomes manufacturing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and everything that touches manufacturing in the AEC industry.
Right. Yeah. I think that's closer than we think.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Because I remember when we were starting to do sun studies and energy analysis and all that other stuff, when we were talking about that at the start of this podcast and things like that. But now it's like, if you don't do that, that's part of the deliverable. We need to be by the 2030. We need to do this. All right, Scott, Carl, Dana, thank you so much for joining me today. And I hope you have a great day wherever you are.